I think our media nowadays are emotionally invested into the political issues. In other words, they're no longer standing on the fence, being impartial, and so forth. They're getting more and more emotionally getting invested in issues, especially when it comes to identity politics that are sweeping the whole nation with the wind of identity. The DA just came back from their policy conference over the weekend, and this comes just around the time when there are more and more racial issues being highlighted in our society here in South Africa. And if you can remember, the African National Congress, the economic freedom fighters, obviously their politics. The ANC, for example, talks about the black economic empowerment. The philosophy here is that because of there's been years of segregation which were administered or perpetuated by law and the government in terms of your former nationalist party, they came up with race-based policies that were discriminatory against the Africans, the Indian communities, the Chinese communities, the colored communities. So now we have to come up with a laser beam racial policy that discriminate against the white communities in order to bring back the balance of making people of other different colors to be on equal footing. So the theory normally is that the historically discriminated communities are starting to run your 400 meters at the back, right? And so when the gun goes, when the gun blows, then when they run, they will never win because they start from the back, right? So the same thing applies to the EFF. The EFF basically is the stance is a little bit even more potent, for lack of a better word, because with the EFF is everything is going to belong to the states. Businesses, all these private companies, the financial institutions, and so forth are going to be nationalized and then be run by the would-be competent government. And if it's anything to go by, I'm sure you can see what's happening right now with the communist virus of how utterly incompetent the government is. But the argument most of the time and all of the time by any communist, by any socialist would be the person who failed dismally practicing communism or socialism, they didn't do or practice the pure communist or socialism. So you have a new organization, political organization coming through, and then as soon as they come through, then they will fail dismally with their communism and socialist policies. And then the whole situation repeats and rinses itself. In other words, the other political party will be standing on the wing and say how dismal the EFF put in place the communism ethos. They didn't practice pure communism. So it goes on and on and on like that. So it's safe to say now that the DA was on the race as well. By race, I mean the marathon. I mean the competition to garner for the black votes, which is the majority in South Africa. So they were having a whole lot of tensions for the past 3 years. They tried different ways of winning the black votes, which will catapult them if they want to be the new government. So as a result, Musi Maimane came through, was appointed to be the leader of the Democratic Alliance. Race played a factor because the DA was hounded throughout the time by the former ANC Youth League, Julius Malema, calling Helen Zille the madam, and anyone who was around her as it's a the as a garden boy, or if it's a black lady, though Malema would call them a tea girl. So in other words, it's the same old derogatory picture of saying that someone else is a madam, they look down on you, you're not able to make your own individual decisions, they control you, and so forth. I must say, there was a time when Julius Malema was calling Lindiwe Mazibuko a madam. He later on, when he moved away from the ANC now and the EFF, spoke to her and apologized for calling her Madam's T girl. So as a result, the DA want to then say, okay, let's put a black leader to be the face of our political party, to show everyone that this narrative of us as the DA is a political party that only looks for the interests of the white folks. So that happens. The election came in. The DA didn't garner more votes, or the votes that they wanted, under a leadership of a person who's black, who was Musi Maimane. Now what happened then? Their ethos of non-racialism started to have its own other challenger, the BEE. They were not clear on the black economic empowerment. They wanted to talk about black economic empowerment in order to entice the black majority voters. And on the other side, they wanted to talk about non-racialism, where a person of each and every race will come into the political party, and they're not going to have race-based policies. They would just have to look into a way of making sure that anyone who has the right idea in order to build a business would get an opportunity to build a business. Anyone who would look for a job and is qualified would then have a conducive opportunity to then be able to work. So they wrestled with this issue back and forth. So eventually now they are back from their policy conference. They're clear now that they're doing away with BEE. They're just looking at anyone who's disadvantaged, whether black, white, yellow, purple, that are unemployed, that we identify you, we identify communities where there are no opportunities and people working far from the cities and so forth, and try to come up with a way that each and everybody can be included in the political system, right? And so it's clear that Musi Maimane lost that debate of race-based policies within the tent of the democratic alliances. So what happened? He resigned, he left, and a lot of people resigned. And since politics are always politics, up to now, everyone who has ever resigned from the democratic alliances always says that we are being treated differently because of the color of our skin. The political party doesn't want to transform and be inclusive. And right now, as we speak, the Pumzile van Dam just tweeted that she didn't know that she was going to be under disciplinary, and she ended up the tweet by saying, "We are being led." Now, this is one of the slogans that's when a political party or when a government official comes up with maybe a policy or say I'm going to build houses somewhere else, and then you find that they build houses in a wetland, like the way that we just built school here in a wetland, and then you end up saying by we're being led. In other words, it means that we've been led poorly. Okay, so it's said that now she's saying she's gonna stay up in there. I guess it's going to be a strategy of making the DA push her out eventually, and then we'll hear what she's going to say about the DA when she eventually going to be pushed out. All right, and this race-based or identity politics of the new liberalism, where you have a huge umbrella of people who comes from all different ways of life under one tent and being one thing. Like, for instance, the identity politics will say we have a gay community in our tent, the LGBT plus community in our tent, black folks in our tent, women in our tent, black women in our tent, and well, it obviously, and it always exclude white male in the tent, okay, and conservatism ethos as well. So this identity politics would say, well, we don't include white males, they have been privileged, they all have everything, and this is what we're dealing with here now. And then when we have a different opinion regarding maybe the black economic empowerment and say, hey, listen, I don't want the black economic empowerment because what I've been seeing now are just names far away from me. It's been heavyweight politicians from the beginning of the ANC being in government who started businesses and had shares and certain number of percentage in giant corporate companies that are rich, and the tradition continues now with the people who are connected to those people, be it relatives and some family members, and it's bringing out a middle class, a new black middle class who are into businesses, but they are not entrepreneurs. Okay, so they are be-preneurs, like the way we're seeing the COVID-preneurs. So now it's quite clear. And one of the other reasons which pundits and analysts are saying that the reason why the DA is going back to what they normally said they were, a non-racial political party, is because they've lost lots of white conservatives to the Freedom Front Plus. Obviously, the DA says, no, that's not the reason. We were calibrating our conferences, coming up with ideas, people raising amendments and so forth, and this is the policy idea that was victorious at the end of the day. And then, so now we have the ANC, the EFF, with the race-based policies, right? And then you have the DA, which is distancing itself from race-based policies. And then we got the new political party by Herman Mashaba, Action SA, which is clear with everything, succinct, like it or not, this is what they're doing. They're more like the opposite of the EFF. The EFF is clear with what they want to do in terms of nationalization, or their 7 cardinal pillars, as they call them. Whether you like the EFF or you don't, they are always clear about what they want and what they don't want to do. So the same thing now it's happening with Action SA of Herman Mashaba. They're also saying, no, we don't want to have anything to do with the BEE because the BEE only deals with the few political elites. We're a free market capitalism organization. We're going to be going to all those townships that you see from the homelands where there were factories which are not being used. And I must say, I've been to all, maybe other different provinces as well, and I'm seeing there are lots of factories which are there And you can see that indeed, the way Mashaba says, he can then meet with investors and so forth and say, we've already got land and premises which could just be renovated, cleaned up, and then businesses would start. And as a result, people from the township, the so-called economic township economy that Mr. President Ramaphosa normally talks about, that thing could be a reality. You could have people working from the township that they're coming from in factories. I mean, there are a lot of things that could be done in terms of bringing the factories back. The textile industry got diminished because of, I guess we got our soft stances with countries like China being under BRICS. They flooded our South African market with their cheap goodies, and as a result, South African people continued and continues to buy cheap stuff that comes from China. And as a result, the South African industries or textile market, for example, closes down because they then would not be able to make money and profit. And they are at a disadvantage because, we have labor relations laws, and China basically doesn't. And on top of us here in South Africa having labor relation laws, we have labor relation laws which normally like to have a leverage over a government of which they've been friends or allies for years. Your COSATU and your SSEP, as well as the ANC. You see that permeate through South African Democratic Teachers Union, which is a member of COSATU, which is a member of the ANC government. And those organizations are married with each other. You have members who are of the trade unions who are in the National Executive Committee, who are also as members of parliament. So it's always been a stalemate, and the ANC also cannot move and make decisions that would favor the people, or people who want to get into working, or people who want to open businesses. There are sometimes laws which are so tough for other businesses to be able to survive and thrive because of the ANC being shackled by its alliances from the past who helped it to bring sanctions and make corporate companies down to their knees. That made the pressure for the new dispensation. So that's what I wanted to talk about. My name is Mamuji, and thanks for watching the Mamuji Show. I'm out.